Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another episode of Weird Disney Cars Diecast Errors and Inconsistencies. The series where I talk about Weird Disney Cars Diecast Errors and Inconsistencies, but you already knew that because you read the title. Let's get started. Let's start off by talking about Team Octane Gain, one of the pit crews that's seen quite a bit more love than some others. This pit crew team has 4 different pitties, one in the tall mold, 2 in the wide mold, one with and without tire guns, and 1 in the short mold. This pitty is sort of the main Octane Gain pitty. He's the one with the name, he's the one that's been released several times, and his name is Dudley Spare. Dudley Spare is the short Octane Gain pitty, but both times he was released as a single, his artwork was actually of a tall Octane Gain pitty. Now, the tall Octane Gain pitty did get a diecast release in a 2010 pit crew pack, but he doesn't have a name. Or does he? So, with the fact that Dudley Spare is a short pitty with the artwork of a tall pitty, we don't really know which one is Dudley Spare. Is it the tall pitty on the packaging, or the short pitty that the diecast is? Clearly this is just a mistake and I'm thinking way too far into this. This video is going to feature quite a few errors and inconsistencies with the 2022 cars that have been revealed so far. I'm sorry if there are too many from new cars that aren't even out yet, but hey, when I see an error, I gotta report on it, okay? And I know that a lot of people would probably be commenting, hey, why didn't you talk about this or that? Hey, why didn't you talk about the McQueens having like a hole in their base now? A lot of these things I'll cover eventually in future episodes, but for now, I would like to focus on a couple of interesting things with the 2022 cars that have been revealed so far. Starting off with this 2-pack right here of Race Official Tom and Cars 1 McQueen. Although we've been getting constant errors with racers using the wrong names or artwork, Mattel has stayed really consistent with giving us the correct images of McQueen and the correct names and all that. Except for this! 5 years after Cars 3 came out, they made a mistake by giving a Cars 1 McQueen release the Cars 3 McQueen artwork. To me, this just sticks out like a sore thumb. You can clearly tell that the animation quality of the Cars 3 McQueen image on the package here is much higher quality than Race Official Tom. These two are not the same paint job. Yeah, they look similar, but they're not the same, and it's really annoying because they had a really good streak going of not making this mistake. This was like the easiest mistake for them to make, and it took them 5 years to do it, and I don't get how that streak could be broken. They were doing well with this, and now they messed it up. Like, how do you end up messing this up after they were going strong with including the right artwork for Cars 1 McQueen and Cars 3 McQueen for the past 5 years? This next one was a really good catch by one of my viewers. I never would have noticed this if they hadn't pointed it out to me, so thank you so much for letting me know about this. In the past, we've discussed the Movie Moments line and how their screenshots would sometimes be edited to make sure both characters appeared in the shot together. But this wasn't the only Cars line to use screenshots. The Walmart 8 line did as well. This line, nicknamed as such because they were 8 new cars released exclusively at Walmart, featured the first release of Aloft the Lightyear blimp, where this was his artwork. Very nice shot of Aloft in front of the MSOS Stadium with fireworks going off behind him. But wait! Because this scene was never in the movie. This shot did not appear, not from this angle, not like this. We did see Aloft watching the fireworks, but facing the back, and then we got a close-up of him. This is a made-up image to make sure you can see the front of the Lightyear blimp, it seems. If you look at him, you can tell that he has no expression on his face. This is clearly just an image of his CGI render, it seems, placed in front of this background. This packaging continued to be used for several years to come, even when he eventually was released as a deluxe. Original deluxes also used screenshots, by the way. This was used for as long as they used screenshots on the packaging, and it never appeared anywhere. Once again, great catch by Sackboy for letting me know about this. I had no idea. The NASCAR crossover series returning for 2022 was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. And alongside some brand new racers, a very interesting new change was made to the NASCAR line. Now, all racers share the same type of wheel. Last year, the racers used their regular wheels released on their regular diecasts, but starting in 2022, they will all now have this different type of wheel. All three of the NASCAR racers released so far have this type of wheel. McQueen's gotten a new NASCAR variant for 2022 featuring this new style of wheel and a new face, and the packaging has even updated the picture of McQueen to have this new style of wheel. So, what's the deal with the wheels? Well, let me tell you the wheel deal. I hated the fact that I said that. Can we redo that? So, what's the deal here? Well, I'm no NASCAR expert, but from what I've heard, this is a NASCAR wheel that they're referring to as the next gen wheel. So, in a NASCAR Cars crossover line focusing on releasing new next gen racers, it's definitely appropriate that they include these next gen wheels, I guess. I am perfectly fine with this. I'm not really a big fan of how the wheels look, but I kind of like this concept because it makes it more closely tied to NASCAR. Honestly, the Cars NASCAR series barely has anything to do with NASCAR, so I think this additional bit of cross promotion is a bit nice. But whether or not the NASCAR racers from last year will be updated this year to have these new wheels remains to be seen. But the different wheels on the artwork isn't the only change to the packaging of the NASCAR racers for 2022. Now, starting in 2022, much like the cars on the main line now have, the NASCAR racers will have a new for 2022 emblem on their packaging if they're a new release. So I guess this basically confirms that we will be getting re-releases of last year's NASCAR racers. I don't know why else they'd put a new for 2022 logo on the packaging if we weren't also going to be getting older releases. The new for whatever year logo is obviously just a marketing tactic. It's something I believe Hot Wheels does. It's something they started doing for the cars since last year. I don't think it really bothers anybody. But I just find this interesting because none of the NASCAR racers had this last year, and neither did any of the other side series cars. None of the new color changers had a new for 2021 logo. None of the Welcome to Radiator Springs cars, although I don't think there were any new releases in that series last year. Not even the new holiday cars like the Snowmobile and the new Ramon. None of these had the new for 2021 logo, so it's interesting to see a side series adopt that with the NASCAR line. Nobody ever really brings up the fact that Race Team Luigi and Guido were re-released back in 2020. I never even saw these guys in a store. I never heard anybody talking about them. I feel like they're some of the most forgotten about re-releases of the past few years. But there's an interesting inconsistency with them. As the 2020 diecast poster, as well as the card backs of several other cars, instead show that Race Team Luigi and Guido with headsets were being released instead of the non-headset variants, which did get released. As always, we don't know the full truth of this situation, but I see this going one of two ways. Either we were originally supposed to get Luigi and Guido with headsets re-released, but they were swapped out with the normal versions at the last minute, and by then it was too late to change the posters and the card backs that already had the headset variants on them. Or we were always supposed to get the non-headset variants, and they accidentally used the wrong images and names on the poster and card backs. It's impossible to tell here, especially because in 2020, we got Race Team Mater and Fillmore with headsets, but a re-release of Race Team Sarge without his headset. And since we got some characters with headsets and some without, I feel like it could really go either way. Although Mater and Fillmore were released in the World Grand Prix series, and Sarge was released in the London Chase series, which is accurate to that scene because he doesn't have a headset there. So, honestly, I'd probably lean more towards Luigi and Guido with headsets were the ones that were supposed to be released, but it doesn't matter anyway. In early 2021, we got a 5-pack with all 5 headset variants of Team 95, so this really doesn't matter. The 2022 Cars line features a really interesting 2-pack with a new version of Mater who is now able to tow an included McQueen. But this McQueen isn't just regular McQueen like the packaging states. Although the box just calls him Lightning McQueen, we have confirmation that this is Road Repair McQueen from 2015. This is one of the lesser known and kinda less interesting McQueen variants. It's McQueen with some dirt speckles on his side, his tar stain, and an alternate expression where he has a very fake-looking smile. Seriously, take one look at this guy's face. He is clearly suffering on the inside. While it is annoying that they just labeled him as normal Lightning McQueen, I do respect the fact that they went out of their way to re-release an older version of McQueen, instead of just giving us the same old Cars 1 McQueen in this 2-pack. Eric Langley is one of the most consistently released Cars 2 diecasts, being the flag waver for the World Grand Prix. But what some people might not know, something that I actually didn't know all the way up until 2017, is that Eric Langley isn't the only flag waver in the World Grand Prix. Eric is only the flag waver for the Tokyo race. He's a Honda, and the other two World Grand Prix races have different flag wavers based off of cars native to their respective countries. The race in Italy has a Fiat flag waver, and the race in London, England has a Mini Cooper flag waver. Eric is just the only one who's gotten merchandise and has a name. These other two cars, the Fiat and Mini Cooper flag wavers, are really forgotten about nowadays. They would make for great diecasts, but instead we just get Eric Langley time and time again. And I feel like they'd be completely forgotten about if it weren't for an error that Mattel did at 2 different points in time that highlighted their existence. When Eric Langley was first released back in 2012, certain copies of his card back actually featured artwork of the Fiat flag waver instead. This is really interesting to me because that's a car that's never gotten a diecast before, but it has official artwork that was shown here. I'd assume what probably happened was they were making artwork based off of the model of the Fiat flag waver instead of Eric Langley, and then late into production, they realized, oh wait, this is the wrong artwork. We need to make one for the correct car instead. Eric and the Fiat do look pretty similar. Not all copies of Eric's original release had this inaccurate artwork. In fact, I'd say the majority of his 2012 releases had the correct artwork, so the Fiat artwork is definitely a rarer car than the original 2012 Eric. After 2012, after he was fixed, Eric Langley continued to have the correct artwork year after year until he didn't! Until 2017, when for whatever reason, he was once again replaced with the Fiat's artwork. And unlike back in 2012, this was never corrected, meaning that any 2017 Eric Langley release, I believe, has the Fiat artwork instead of his correct one. But in the 5 years since 2017, Eric Langley has once again reverted back to using his correct artwork in all of his releases, which is really nice. It's great that they're staying consistent with this. But wait a minute. The original time there was the mistake with Eric and the second time were 5 years apart. And now, it's been 5 years since that release of Eric. We haven't seen 2022 Eric Langley yet. Which means that, if we're going off the pattern here, 2022 Eric Langley is bound to have the Fiat artwork again! Somebody stop Mattel! Somebody stop them! It's gonna happen again! It happens every 5 years! Somebody stop them! Something about the Cars diecast line that I find way more interesting than I should is what movie the artwork for each character is from. The artwork used for characters, especially the main characters like the Radiator Springs Townies or other characters who appear in several movies, is always changing. Some of them use artwork from Cars 1, some from Cars 2, and some from Cars 3. And in 2022, quite a few characters have changed what movie their artwork is from. While Fillmore, Sheriff, and Sarge are continuing to use their artwork from the first Cars like they have for several years, and Luigi and Guido are continuing to use their artwork from Cars 2 like they had for several years, Mater has switched from using his Cars 2 artwork, which he's been using for the past few years, to his Cars 1 artwork. Flo has surprisingly switched from her Cars 1 artwork that she's been using for several years now to her Cars 3 artwork, which honestly looks kind of out of place in her 2-pack with Cars 1 Purple Ramon. I don't know, his artwork just looks outdated compared to her super detailed Cars 3 render. And, finally, at least the last one I'm currently aware of, Red went from using his really cute Cars 3 artwork to his classic Cars 1 artwork. I know that this is a super obscure, pretty niche error inconsistency. I just find it really interesting, and it's something that I'd love to do a whole video on in the future, just going over what movie the Radiator Springs Townies artwork is from, because it does change quite a bit. And now, to end today's episode, it's time to return to the world of Cars Geotrax. Making its third appearance in Errors and Inconsistencies, this toy line really is a repeat offender around here. Geotrax was a toy line made by Fisher-Price, which was a road and train track building system, there were several different Cars characters and sets released for it. It was pretty interesting because it featured both RC and non-RC characters. And it also featured a boatload of errors and inconsistencies. One of these is a pretty simple one, but still a really annoying one. The Geotrax Radiator Springs Lightning McQueen is in fact not a Radiator Springs Lightning McQueen at all, and is instead his Cruisin' variant. Despite being labeled as Radiator Springs McQueen on the packaging and using his image, you can see that the McQueen included is Cruisin' McQueen. They even went out of their way to not give him a spoiler. And then they messed up and used the wrong artwork of a version of McQueen that does have the spoiler. How did they go out of their way to make a new mold to make sure this McQueen was accurate, and then they called him the wrong version? I don't get it. Honestly, I've got to say, with how similar these two versions of McQueen are, I'm surprised more toy lines haven't made this mistake. Like, with the amount of times Mattel has released Radiator Springs and Cruisin' McQueen, it's really surprising to see that they've never once mixed them up. Please don't tell me that I jinxed that. Please don't tell me I jinxed that. I shouldn't have said that. Now it's gonna happen. Come on. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching yet another episode of Weird Disney Cars Diecast Errors and Inconsistencies. I'm so excited to continue this series on through 2022, and we have some very big plans for the next episode, so I hope you all join along for the ride. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.